So hello and welcome, I'm Frederick Dunn and this is The Way to Be. Now, on February the 15th, it was 41.4 degrees Fahrenheit outside. The snow was beginning to melt and it was a great opportunity to go out and collect some bees. So I thought I would make this 14-minute video for you. We're going to build an enclosure first because when we go out and collect the bees from the snow, we are going to put them inside something that allows us to observe them. So this is very inexpensive plastic little kit that says it's designed for reptiles. I wouldn't imagine putting a reptile in it, but these are all the pieces and we're going to put it together. This, of course, is not a review. I'm just showing you so that if you ask later, what did you put them in? What was that thing? Well, this is it. 4.5 inches wide, 4.5 inches deep, 8 inches tall, and it goes together with these little silicone loops. It's pretty funny, I thought. But so we're going to put this together, and then of course we're going to go out, we're going to collect some bees, we're going to put them in here and see if they're dead. If they're dead and they don't come back to life in the warm air, I'm going to show you that. However, if they do come back to life, you're going to see that too. This thing has a door in it, by the way. You might be wondering, how big's the door? 6 inches tall, 4.25 or 4 1/4 wide. And it has this little lock on the top. I'm sure that'll keep any little fingers out of there. You don't want to release your bees all over the house. I should admit, historically, I just go out and collect the bees off the ground, landing boards, things like that. Put them on a plate, put them right here on the kitchen table, and later on, we find a bunch of them out and about. They come back to life. So we're going to see how that works. That kind of goes down like a drawbridge. And it comes with its own tweezers. Look at that. But I have my own tweezers. They're better. And I'm going to use these to pick up the bees. We're not going to touch them. We're going to put them in a little transparent plastic test tube. I'm also have mixed up some 1-to-1 sugar syrup. So that's 1 part dry sugar and water. And it's warm, of course. This is the whole kit. This is what we're using. And it's on a towel, of course. We don't want to mess things up and get in trouble. And we're going to go outside and look for things here. This is the Way to Be Academy on the right. Nice and cold. Snow is still crunchy. And it's worth noting, too, that overnight it definitely got much colder. Now, the bees that we see on the surface, like this one, sure, it's warm body, melted into the snow, and they make these little hot pockets there. These are the ones that actually have the best chance. You take them out. Keep in mind, it got pretty darn cold over the nighttime. And when they go down into these little pockets, they look kind of doomed. Most people would write them off. I mean, why pick up a dead bee from the ground, for Pete's sakes? But you might be surprised. And when you watch this video, you might see some interesting stuff. This is called chill coma. So bees actually, they depend on one another for heat. Honeybees inside a hive, they cluster together. They vibrate their thorax. They maintain warmth inside the hive. But really, they're cold-blooded. They can't do a lot when they're out here. And their little bodies melt into the snow like this, and it makes people sad. So often when I make a video here on YouTube, people will chime in and say, why didn't you save that bee? Look at the dead bees on the landing board. Why aren't you getting them and putting them back inside the hive? Well, there are lessons here. First of all, they may not be dead. They could just be in a coma. And that's what that means. There are definitely temperatures at which a honeybee will have their body temperature drop and they'll just die. And look at that one, how deep in that was. So we'll just collect them one by one, put them in my plastic test tube, take them inside to the kitchen table, and then we'll show it to you, the good, the bad. If they come around, you'll see it. If they're dead, we'll just get some close-up pictures of bees that are not moving. Look at that one. This also happens, by the way, when you're looking at your beehive. Some people like to get in their beehives and open them up and see what's going on. It's something I highly recommend you do not do. And the reason is bees can appear dead. You can have clusters of bees inside your hive. You pull that lid, you pull that inner cover, you see a cluster there, they're not moving. I can't tell you how many times someone has said, all my bees are dead, look at them. And what I recommend to those people, collect those bees. If you've opened up a hive, if you're writing them off anyway and you're saying they're dead, get a bunch of them, put them in a Ziploc baggie or something, This is a plastic test tube. Bring them inside. Put them on the kitchen table. See how dead they really are. If you saw this bee on top of a hive in the middle of winter, or in the middle of February in this case, and say, oh, like they're dead. All my bees are dead. You might be surprised. That one definitely looks dead, but I say it's promising. Another thing I like to look at is their abdomen, because when you see them dead on the snow, if the abdomen is nice and full, they're not starved out yet. That bee might recover. So we're going to take all these bees and we're going to dump them on the bottom of our brand new reptile enclosure, that's what they call it. And now, of course, we're inside, so we have indoor temperatures, and we're going to provide them with resources. Just in case, if they come around, we want them to have something to consume. So the carbohydrate would be the sugar syrup, 1-to-1. I'm also going to take pure fresh water and put little droplets of that around, because you know what? Let's say they snap out of it. And by snap out of it, I mean over a period of hours. Who has this kind of time? So inside the house right now, 65 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 18.3 Celsius. And, that's not a prime temperature for the bees either, but it's better than freezing outside and getting chill coma. And then we're just going to stare at them. For how long, you might wonder. Well, since I'm making a video, I have to stare at them for hours until they come around. Because often people think, well, look, they're really dead, and then you would just throw them away. But I say wait, because it takes them a long time to get jump-started again. So there is a point of no return, of course. Some of these bees were exposed to temperatures down into the 20s overnight. They can't take that for very long, although they can be exposed to that for a little bit. Why am I focusing on this particular bee on the left? Look at its abdomen. Very contracted. So that bee was already kind of starving. So it might have headed out on its last flight. No intention to return. The other thing is we've collected all these bees off of the snow in an apiary with multiple hives. How do we know which one they came from? Look at this one. Can you tell by looking at them which ones are absolutely doomed? Maybe look at the wing position, their antennae, their feet. Maybe their proboscis is sticking out. Is that a good sign that they're basically done? They were trying to feed. But again, look at the abdomens. Look at the wing positions. You know what I found out? That really doesn't tell us much. Now, the contracted abdomen for sure. I'll tell you ahead of time. None of the ones with the tiny abdomens made it. None of them. Look at the tongue sticking out, the proboscis there, bottom center. That indicates that bee was hungry. Maybe it was trying to drink water, which is melting snow, of course. And then it just got too cold and it just expired right there with its tongue out. They look dead. In fact, if someone were new to beekeeping and they plated a bunch of these bees and put them on the kitchen table, they would be pretty confident. They have a big collection of dead bees and then they just throw them away, put them down the garbage disposal. I don't know what people do with their dead bees. Look at that proboscis. Guess what else is interesting? Look at the micro movements now. Now this is a long time later. This is a game of patience. You have to have time on your hands. You have to be interested. So there are little tiny movements starting to happen here. Look at the wings. Look at the feet start to move. Looks like we're making a slow motion video, but we're not. Now they're up and about. Not all of them. What's the first thing they went for? Sugar syrup and water. And now we can watch them drink. So we don't really know, of all the bees collected out there, which ones were exposed to the coldest temperatures for the longest time. I don't know when they flew out. We went out and collected these at about 11 a.m. Some bees were starting cleansing flights from their hives. But when you're looking at the holes in the snow, the little melted pots that they made there, the ones that sunk deep into the snow definitely have been there for a while. It's not like they flew out there today. In fact, I suspect most of those were overnighters outside in the temps in the 20s. Now, Just because the air got into the 20s, that bee that sunk down into that pocket was surrounded by snow. So it was out of the wind. And it was probably at about 33, 34 degrees Fahrenheit. And so they start roaming around, feeding one another, but you can see clearly that some of the bees in here did not come around at all. But it's interesting because what does it demonstrate? What practical use is there to have this knowledge? Well, I'm trying to explain that when people open up their beehives and they find piles of bees, sometimes even on the bottom of the hive, by the way, you can have piles of dead bees inside your hive that appear dead. And of course, we sweep them out if they're blocking the entrance. I mean, that's only right, it's only helpful. But I would like to assign you some homework. When you're cleaning out your hive entrance, take your Ziploc bag with you, clean out the dead bees, in quotation marks there, and put them in your Ziploc baggie. Take that bag inside and very slowly let it warm up. Now, this is interesting behavior too, by the way. We're looking at these bees. What are they doing? Now, of course, we could try to get some clickbait going and say, look, I'm trying to revive their sister, get her back to life, get her going. But I found out that some of these actually instinctively act like undertaker bees, even though we're not in the hive. And in a couple of instances, they actually dragged around some of the dead bees. And the interesting part of that, too, was that the dead bees they were dragging around never did get revived. They never came around. They never warmed up and got activated again. So I think the bees know when another bee has potential to be revived or when it's time to be discarded. Now, another thing I'd like to ask you, because a lot of people are concerned, what should you do with these bees? You bring them inside, you warm them up, they're not dead. Look at the abdomen on the one foreground center. It's starting to move a little bit. So they don't even all revive at the same rate. Some of them take a long time. Several hours longer than those that were coming around early. Now you might ask, how long did I keep them in here? How much of a chance did I give them? Well, I kept them in here for 3 days because we started on the 15th and today is February the 18th. And it's raining outside today. So they definitely can go for several days as long as you provide them fresh water and light sugar syrup for the carbohydrates, just to keep them going. And they start moving around. Less than 50% of these bees made it. So a lot of them definitely, absolutely are dead. There's nothing to be gained by bringing them in. Somebody else may say, did they have mites on them? No, there were no Varrodestructor mites on any of the abdomens here. I find that most of the people that identify a mite on a bee in these circumstances often look at where the wings attach to the thorax. So the other thing is they found a hot spot. There's an LED light on the top of this enclosure now, and it was 87 degrees on the interior surface there. So those that were mobile climbed right up the sides, went across the ceiling of this little habitat, and got warmed up. So, you tell me, what would you do with these bees, considering that today, on February the 18th, it is in the 40s again, but it's raining, and it's not suitable for them. Only 9 of them are alive now. They're living on water and sugar syrup, and they're warm. So February the 18th, it's 45 degrees. The low has been 32.2, and it is raining. What would you do with those bees? Thanks for watching, and be careful. Some of the bees you think are dead are definitely not.